Flyers and Jets, Winnipeg in town tonight. I'm told, Brian, I did an appearance on a Winnipeg media outlet today.
Okay.
That they're in the middle of horrific weather in Winnipeg and such high winds they've had to close roads. And it makes me think, if the weather is being described in Winnipeg as horrific, if they were here, it would be described as balmy.
It's funny you mentioned that because I had started to explain to the social media producer that's here for Winnipeg that I started to explain how we'd had a blizzard here on Saturday, and then I kind of stopped and I'm like, well, there's a blizzard for us maybe,
and not for Winnipeg.
A little bit south of here. I think for you guys it was a Thursday.
Dusting.
Yeah, but I did have to kind of catch myself there. But I bet they're glad they're down here, down south. Yeah, where it's a nice balmy 26 today or whatever it was. Actually, it was above freezing for once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of these teams are looking to win 2 straight games for the first time in a long time. Winnipeg won their last game on the road in St. Louis prior to tonight on Saturday, 4-1. The Flyers, of course, won on Saturday against Los Angeles Kings in overtime, 4-3. The Winnipeg Jets haven't won back-to-back games since January 2nd and 4th, and the Flyers have not won back-to-back games since December 18th and December 29th. Now, there's a huge gap there because they postponed 2 games and they extended the Christmas pause. But both these teams looking to win 2 straight for what has been far too long for both of them. Yeah,
it's, again, dry spells for both of these teams. And again, for the Flyers, quite exacerbated by first COVID and then injuries. This has been it was a very rough month of January for them, obviously, and now I think what we've seen, especially this past Saturday, but even a couple games leading into that, was that some of these guys that are here and kind of filling in, if you will, for the regulars are starting to come into their own, and they're starting to play well together, and that's going to take time regardless of the situation. So that was good to see. But the Jets have been on a bit of a roller coaster ride as well. Obviously, being based in Canada, they've been subject to a little bit more restrictive situation than we've had here in the States. And they had, I think, 28-day span there toward the end of 2021 where they only played 4 times.
Yeah.
Just because of postponements due to not able to have fans in the building and all that. I mean. Winnipeg they play in the smallest building in the league, just over 14,000, but they sell it out every night.
Yeah.
And so, that's a big deal for them not to be able to have those fans there. So they've been trying everything they can to push those games back up in Canada until such time as they can open their buildings again. It sounds like they're going to be able to do that maybe, I don't know, sometime this month or into March. I'm not sure.
March is full, but
yeah.
I think in like a week or so, like 10 days,
okay,
back to 50% attendance.
Yeah. I mean, the same thing. They're dealing with the same thing in the National Lacrosse League with the Philadelphia Wings, and we're both involved in that. We've been seeing a lot of those games get moved around too. So it's been a rough time for both of these teams for various reasons, but they're both turning the corner a little bit, and we'll see what comes out of it tonight.
How about tonight? You look at it and you go, okay, it's the Flyers and Jets, 2 teams that haven't met expectations this season, yet 2 of the better goaltenders in the NHL. And it's going to be Hart versus Hellebuck tonight. Now, Connor Hellebuck's been in the league 7 years. I mean, he had a year a couple of years ago in the 1920 season.
Yeah.
He played 58, was in 58 games, started 56 of them. I finished with a .922 save percentage and 6 goose eggs. Followed that up with a .916 and 4 shutouts. He's got 2 this year, .909 save percentage. One of the top goaltenders in the league, and Carter Hart on the other side of the ledger, having a real good year for the Flyers, despite the fact that, the thing that's so interesting about Hart, he's appeared in 28 games, 27 which he started. He's got a record of 8-14-0 and 0-5 because of the overtime losses.
Yeah.
And 1 shutout, but a .913 save percentage and a .287 goals against average. You look at those numbers, and they almost don't they don't make sense because of the record, because the numbers are good, but it just shows you that he hasn't gotten run support.
Absolutely, and I think it makes sense to us. I would think, having watched Carter Hart play all season, that you realize that if the Flyers were on their game in front of him, that those numbers would actually be a lot lower. He's playing better than those numbers, and if you look at it, not having walked through the season, you probably would get that impression. You probably get that impression when you look at Connor Hellbuck's numbers. That you wonder, he's doing pretty decent, but their record's terrible. Well, the team in front of him been a little bit better. Those numbers would be even lower than they are. The Flyers still, again, have not been able to kind of solidify their defensive pairings. With Ryan Ellis being out all year. This is the second consecutive year that they've had this problem. They tried their best to address it, and just the injury situation has not allowed it. So they'll keep on going as best they can through this, and it is a good goaltending matchup. You're going to see good goaltending tonight, and it's a series of these are two teams that will combine to play a pretty good game against one another. Whereas they obviously haven't had great games against some of the top line teams in the league so far.
Now, tonight is also an intriguing matchup of two coaches that didn't start the season as head coaches. Of course, Alain Vigneault was fired, and Mike Yeo is the interim head coach. And in Winnipeg, they started out with Paul Maurice, who resigned, oddly enough, after a really long stint there, I think 8 years, maybe 9 years. And Dave Lowry, now the head coach there, and the father of Adam Lowry, who's a player on the Winnipeg Jets. And the Flyers actually have a father-son duo that the son played for the dad here in Philadelphia. Had a pretty damn good year too.
Yeah. The Bill Dineen era was short.
Yep, 3 years.
But it was the turnaround. It was the Flyers bringing in Eric Lindros and then starting to build the team around him again. That was one of those little quirks that just kind of came about. Kevin was the captain of the team at the time.
Yep.
Now he's a very, very skilled head coach in his own right at the American Hockey League level. He's coached in the NHL as well. But, he's, very, very well respected in the game today. And, that was one of those things where it was I'm sure it was an interesting situation for them. I don't know what it would like to be in the locker room back then, but I think you get to the point where you just you've seen situations like that around the league. I mean, the one thing that's always kind of blown my mind in Washington when Terry Murray was hired to replace his brother.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what Thanksgiving dinner was like then.
Yeah,
that's got to be a little bit awkward. But it's probably. Looking at it from the perspective of a family situation, they're going to remember that forever. That they're going to be able to remember when they were working together in the NHL. But obviously on a day-to-day basis, you're just focused on trying to get the job done and whatever it takes to do that.
In this sport, in basketball, in soccer, the players are used to having. Not used to, but some players are used to having dad as the coach for at least a period of time. But you get to a certain level where all of a sudden it's not dad's the coach anymore. You got a real coach that's not just dad volunteering. Whether your dad played in the NHL like Dave Lowry or not, it doesn't matter. But it's a very unique circumstance. Dave Lowry, of course, played in the NHL, played for the Florida Panthers for a number of years, and it's an interesting situation there when you have that.
Yeah, and you're getting to the point now where we're seeing more and more.
Who's it more uncomfortable for, the dad or the son? I think it's the son.
I would think it's the son as well.
Yeah,
because you got to deal with all the other guys around the room. I don't know what that dynamic would be like nowadays.
Can you go ask your dad if we could have an off day tomorrow?
Exactly. And you're seeing it, but you're seeing it more and more in the game these days. I mean, as the NHL gets older. We passed the 100th anniversary about 4 years ago. You're starting to see now third, fourth generations where the players that played in the third generation are having pretty good hockey players as kids, and so you're seeing a lot of it. It mostly started back in probably the 70s, I think 70s, 80s. You started to see this roll around first. The Hows are the one that come to mind immediately for Flyers fans, but there were some others. And then it just kind of branched off from there. And now you've got you got guys like the Kachucks who have two kids playing in the National Hockey League. I don't know why Franz van Riemsdyk doesn't open some kind of hockey school, because he managed to put two of his kids in the NHL on a regular basis, and the third wasn't far off. I don't know. I can't remember if Brendan ever actually played in the NHL, but he was right there. But he obviously wasn't a hockey player. So you get these. You're starting to get these places. I mean, and you see it across the women's game too.
Yeah.
The Kessels. I mean, you've got Phil, obviously, who's his thing. Amanda's on the Olympic team on the women's side, and Blake almost made the NHL, played the American Hockey League level. So you're getting these things all across these different branches of families that are figuring it out, and it is really kind of interesting to watch when things like that happen.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you see all these names now, and we're going to see a Boucher. Tyler Boucher, of course, the son of Brian Boucher, was the first-round draft pick and actually drafted higher than Dad was in the first round, which I like to remind Boucher of.
Of course.
But it is interesting. You see what's happening in St. Louis, and the growth of youth hockey there because so many NHL players decided to stay.
Yeah.
And boost those programs.
We're seeing it now with Matthias Samuelsson too.
Yeah.
And apparently I have to issue an apology because apparently I said something recently about Big Sam, Michelle Samuelsson, skating Derek Brassard that was not complimentary to him. I don't remember doing this, but I'm going to apologize anyway because he's taller than me.
Well, he's taller than everyone.
Yeah. So didn't mean it, whatever it was.
All right. Well, it is the Flyers and the Jets coming up from Wells Fargo tonight. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about this game some more. Isaac Ratcliffe going to play his second NHL game. We'll talk about him. We'll talk about some of the combinations tonight as the Flyers and Jets are set to do battle here. Tim Saunders and Steve Coates will have the countdown to face off at the top of the hour. We're back after this on Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Jets getting set to drop the puck here at Wells Fargo Center. By the way, tonight, Bri, the 700th NHL game for Claude Giroux as a captain.
That is correct.
That's amazing.
That's more. That's longer than most careers in this league. But 700 now since the start of the 12-13 season. That was the
48
lockout shortened year. 48 games started with a January matchup against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So we're on basically almost exactly 9 years. 9 years and a couple of weeks that he has been the captain of the team. He's been the longest tenured captain for a while. It's a little bit of a caveat there because the only reason Bob Clark gave up the captaincy for a few years is because he became a player assistant coach, and the league said he couldn't do both. So
is that what Mel Bridgman was the captain?
Yes, Mel Bridgman was the captain for a while there, and then Bill Barber was the captain for a little while, and then the player assistant thing stopped. 83, 84 is last year. He was captain again, but the longest continuous, I should say, longest continuous and longest overall. It's been the longest continuous for a while, but yeah, it's he's really got remarkable numbers too when you look at it. He's 6th in the NHL in scoring since he took over the captaincy. He's 4th in power play points. Just remarkable the kind of numbers that Claude Giroux has been able to put up consistently over that time frame. He's only missed 10 games since he took that over, and 5 of them were due to COVID.
Yeah.
So this past year, no symptoms just because of the regulations. Last year, there were some symptoms involved right before the Lake Tahoe trip. But yeah, it's just the longevity that's there. I mean, the consistency too, and the overall play since then has just been outstanding. And it's really unfortunate that he hasn't had more playoff success since then. Most of his playoff success came before he was the captain. And then I really think this team was headed in the right direction in 1920 to make a big splash until COVID just got in the way. And these past 2 seasons have been affected by it. But you just hope that there's a deep playoff run in his near future, whether it's here or somewhere else at the end of this season. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here over the next 6 weeks. But yeah, a big nice round number today for the captain, and it's good to see.
Yeah, you're looking at 699 games as a captain, 210 goals, 440 assists, 650 points, 60 power play points, 4 shorthanded goals, 34 game-winning goals. I mean, 194 power play points. I mean, it's amazing. And couple that with, being available for all of those games over that period of time. I mean, he's 4th in games played since that season.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I knew there's another number I was trying to come up with. He and Anze Kopitar, that played one another on Saturday, obviously. They'll be tied after tonight because the Kings are off. And the only 2 guys ahead of them are Yandel and Kessel, who both had the Ironman streaks going since 2009.
Exactly.
So other than those guys, they're on top.
Yeah. I mean, Yandel's only 12 games or whatever ahead of Phil Kessel.
Right.
In that Ironman streak. But you look at it, and Giroux 4th in the NHL since that season, the 2012-13 season. 700 tonight. Kopitar's got 700 since that season as well. Suter's at 698. Pavelski in there in the top 10. Cogliano, who only had his Ironman streak broken because of suspension.
Right.
Oddly enough, Milan Lucic is in there as well. You would never think 695 games since then. But Lucic as well. Voracek is also 11th on that list at 690. So
right.
Pretty interesting numbers. It is the Flyers and the Jets tonight here at Wells Fargo Center. Flyers come into this game tonight looking to win 2 straight for the first time since just kind of straddled around Christmas. They won the second of those 2 straights, that first game of that trip out in Seattle. They won the first side before Christmas against Ottawa in overtime, and then the other one in Seattle where they came back and won that game 3-2. Mm-hmm. That was also their last win prior to the win on Saturday against the Kings.
Right. Yeah. It's again, it's kind of remarkable when you. It's funny when you look at these losing streaks and they're going on and on and on, and you don't feel like they're as long as they do, and then they end, and you look back and it's like, whoa,
yeah,
that took a while.
Time stops for no man.
One of the quirky stats tonight is that Winnipeg hasn't won here in 10 years.
Is that right?
It was almost 10 years exactly. I think Timmy Coates will get into this a little bit more, but 2012 when they moved from Atlanta the first year. They played the Thrashers schedule, so they played here 3 times. They're going east a whole lot.
Well, that must have been great travel.
Yeah, I'm sure it was wonderful. But I don't know if you recall this. There was a game here in the 11-12 season where Winnipeg won 9-8, and it was a night where the Flyers went down 5-1, and you pack it in, you think you're done. And then it was 6-2, and then the Flyers came back and took a 7-6 lead, and you're thinking, oh, this is great. And then all of a sudden, Winnipeg scores 2 more times. It's 8-7. Flyers tie it up, and Winnipeg wins it 9-8. It was one of the most bizarre things I've been a part of, just in terms of a back and forth game. Usually, if you score 8 goals, you're going to win, but that didn't happen that night. It was that was the Peter Laviolette heyday. That was the year the Flyers went to the second round, and that Pittsburgh series. It was just an epic one.
Oh yeah.
So that gives you an idea of how long ago we're talking here. I believe that's Sean Couturier's rookie season.
Yep.
So they've got a little bit of a history with it. I mean, they demolished this franchise when it was in Atlanta. They couldn't lose, and then the Jets have been better. They only play them twice a year, and then they don't play them at all in years like last year, or if there's a shortened season or whatever. But Winnipeg's been more successful against Philadelphia since the move, but it's just been a rough go for them here in Philly, even though they're not here very much.
Well, it is the Flyers and the Jets tonight. The Flyers will look for a second straight win. So will the Jets against the Flyers tonight at Wells Fargo Center. Let's take our last time out here of the pregame show. It is Flyers game day on BetRivers.com. Flyers Broadcast Network. Flyers and Winnipeg Jets coming up momentarily from here at Wells Fargo Center. Claude Giroux's 700th game as the captain. Flyers come into this game tonight in the 7th spot in the Metropolitan Division. 44 games played, 14-22 and 836 points, 1-7-2 in their last 10. They won their last one to break that 13-game winning skid And you look at the opposition tonight. Winnipeg comes in 6th spot in the Central Division of the Western Conference. 41 games played, 18, 16, and 7, 43 points, 3-5-2 in their last 10. Won their last one over St. Louis 4-1. And even though it's been a disappointing season, still 2 games over Hockey 500, and that's a far cry from where the Flyers are.
Yeah, it's again been a bit of a weird comparison between the two conferences this year. The gap between 8 and 9 in the East is wider than I've ever seen it at this time of year. It is it's a 7-point gap, but in terms of winning points percentage, Detroit's in the 9 spot right now at 500. Boston's at 631 up in the 8 spot. They've got 4 games in hand on Detroit. So that gap is just so wide. What that does is it really kind of accentuates the record of the top 8 versus the bottom 7 in the East. I mean, those Eastern Conference games are being won at the expense of somebody, and it's just very unusual to see those top 8 pulling away like that. Usually, you have at least a dogfight for 1 playoff spot, if not 2. So you're seeing that a little bit with the Eastern Conference teams that it's a bigger gap between the guys that are not in it versus those that are than there is in the West, where it's a little bit more even this year.
Yeah, and you look at the top 8 teams right now; they're going to be the 8 teams in the playoffs, barring some kind of miracle from somebody. I don't see it, but you look at it and you look at those 8 teams and you go, "Oh my goodness!" I guess they're just jockeying for position now and home ice because there's going to be teams you're going to want to avoid.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Washington right now is a wild card team. They could get either Florida or Carolina in the first round. Do you think either one of those teams wants to take on Washington?
No, absolutely
Hell
not.
no.
It's again like
Or Boston.
That's 631 right now that Boston's got. That's a 103-point pace. So what you're going to end up telling me is that if you had 100 points in the East this year, you wouldn't get in. If
That's insane.
Keeps up. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Right? I think the record right now is either 96 or 98.
Wow.
Boston didn't get in with 96 about 5 years ago, and that was the highest point total not to get in the NHL history.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that'll be very interesting. Morgan Frost was questionable for tonight's game. I know he's been feeling under the weather the last couple of days, but he is taking warm-ups tonight. So we'll see if he can last. I saw him playing soccer downstairs earlier.
Like, the reports that for the people that can see warm-ups, which we can't, are that he looks like he has good energy. Jackson Cates is up, and he can jump in if Morgan can't go, but it looks like he might be good to go there.
All right, that would be good to see because he's developed a little bit of chemistry with Jerry Mayhew and with Zach as well. So, that could be, Zach McEwen could be an interesting one. The pairings from the pregame skate today or the lines as well. Giroux, Lindblom, and Atkinson. Lawton centering JVR and Konechny. Frost, Willman, and Mayhew. Bunneman, Ratcliffe, and McEwen. Then the D pairs, Provorov and Braun, Sanheim and Ristolainen. York continue on the right side along with Keith Yandel. Talking to one of the Flyers coaches before the game today, Nick Schultz, and about Cam York playing that right side is a pretty big adjustment to move to the right side, especially you're trying to get adjusted just to the NHL and then adjusted to the other side of the ice.
Well, again, we were trying to find a way, right, that Cam York could stick with this roster, and again, you're looking for positives right now. You're looking for things you can glean out of this season. And since there's really not a whole lot on the line right now, why not toss him on the right at the NHL level and see if you can't get him to the point where he could be, moved around from left to right.
Yeah, that's versatility.
You can develop that. Then, 3 years down the road, if he can do that and fit better in the defensive core, then I'll take it.
Yeah, you take a guy that's got that kind of versatility. That's always good.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong.
Yep.
All right, stay tuned. Tim Saunders, Steve Coates, they've got the countdown to face off. All the first period action as the Flyers look to win 2 straight for the first time since the 29th of December. Stay tuned. It is the Flyers and the Jets right after this. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.
Forgot to tell the finish. I
And
understand that.